Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. We're going to talk about Jes Staley today, folks. For those of you who have been listening to the podcast for some time, you know that I have been all over Jes Staley from Barclays for quite some time because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that he's been able to wiggle out of it. Well, I told you folks a few months ago that Jes Staley was not going to be long for the business world. And it looks like that's going to be the case very soon. I said by the end of summer. Originally they were saying by the end of 2020 they wanted to replace him. Well, I said that timeline has been accelerated because of what went on with Jeffrey Epstein, and what's going on now especially must have them in an absolute panic. Now that Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested, Barclays must be completely shook over the fact that Jes Staley has such a stink on him because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now remember, Jes Staley was the man who really facilitated Jeffrey Epstein's financial transactions when he was at JP Morgan. And then he goes over to Barclays and they just accept him with open arms, even though he was so close to Epstein, not just when it comes to business, but personally as well. These two men were very, very close, and the fact that Jes Staley is in charge of Barclays is just mind-blowing to me. We have an article today from Bloomberg, and the headline is, Barclays informally gauged interest for CEO Staley's role. Authored by Amberine Choudhury, Stefania Spasazzi, and Geraldine Amiel. And I've heard the same thing from people that I know that work on Wall Street and in the financial district. They've been saying it for quite some time. The scuttlebutt is Jes Staley is on his way out. A lot of people have been talked to about the position. There's been a lot of feelers, but the company itself, the bank itself, has remained in the camp of, no, that's crazy. We're not looking to do that. And really, we know what the deal is with that, right? In the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, the last thing they want to do is put even more undue strain on their business and have a guy like Staley get fired right now. But the writing is on the wall. And in my estimation, by the end of summer, the latest by the end of fall, this guy will be gone from Barclays, in my opinion. Barclays PLC has reached out to potential candidates in recent months to gauge their interest in the bank's top job, part of a long-term succession plan to replace Chief Executive Officer Jes Staley. Oh yeah, a long-term succession plan, huh? Has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. No, not at all. While there is no formal search currently underway, debatable at best, Barclays board has asked search firm Spencer Stuart to work on what is known as market mapping, which can be a prelude to kicking off a process people familiar with the matter said, asking not to be identified because the deliberations aren't public. And again, I have some sources on Wall Street that have said the same exact thing, that this has been going on for quite some time, that the honchos at Barclay are antsy with Staley still around, and they're definitely looking for that exit strategy. Staley, who became CEO in December of 2015, could leave the bank as soon as next year, people with knowledge of the plan have previously said. And again, I think it's much more accelerated than that. And the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested and you have all of the interest in this case again starting to blow up, how long before the mainstream media, the legacy media, and the rest of these clowns that have decided to start covering this case recently, how long before they are starting to exert pressure on Barclays as well? Because it won't be long before all of these ties are blown up in the legacy media now. You've seen the way the legacy media is acting, like they've been all over this case since day one. And now, a guy like Jes Staley, oh yeah, they'll love to sink their teeth into this guy for sure. But the fact of the matter is this. I have zero doubt that Jes Staley is out at Barclays. It's not a matter of if at this point. It is just a matter of when. A Barclays spokesman said there is no search underway. A spokesman for Spencer Stuart in London declined to comment. Barclays chairman Nigel Higgins, who has backed Staley's leadership, is under increasing pressure from an activist investor to replace the CEO. Edward Bramson's Sherborne Investors stepped up its campaign against Staley this year after regulators questioned an account of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, the deceased financier, pedophile, and sex offender. At the time, Barclays said its board believes Staley has been sufficiently transparent with the company as regards the nature and extent of his relationship. Yeah? I wonder if they feel the same way after Deutsche Bank just got clipped with that $150 million fine for their facilitation of Epstein. Now, the question becomes, when is somebody going to look into JP Morgan? When is somebody going to look into Barclays? Because all of these people were intertwined with Jeffrey Epstein and pulling the same kind of maneuvers that they were pulling at Deutsche Bank. Bramson has also been a fierce critic of Staley's focus on investment banking, which has been a less profitable business than the bank's other units. And really, it's about Epstein with Bramson, right? He really wants to get rid of Staley over his ties to Epstein, and he'll use anything to do that. Edward Bramson and Sherborne believe that having the stink of Staley hanging over them and the company is never, ever going to go away if they don't act. And unfortunately for Barclays and the rest of the shareholders, it seems like Nigel Higgins has been very against the move, while the rest of the board, on the other hand, maybe not in public, but privately, they all have serious misgivings about Jes Staley being the CEO still. And I have heard this from multiple sources on Wall Street. Multiple people that work in the financial district have talked to me about this exact topic and the fact that Jes Staley is, professionally speaking, a dead man walking. Staley has also faced regulatory scrutiny for his attempts to unmask a whistleblower. He was personally fined but kept his job after a probe by the Financial Conduct Authority. And again, these are the kind of people that they keep in their positions, right? Jes Staley has no business being the CEO of Barclays. He has no business overseeing anything at this point after his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that he went and visited Jeffrey Epstein at his island after Epstein was already convicted one time. The fact that him and Epstein were so chummy. The fact that he was moving millions and millions and millions of dollars of Epstein's ill-gotten gains. All of that comes into play. However, the CEO's hand has been strengthened in the past few months. Barclays Securities Division, which is at the heart of Staley's plan to drive growth, posted a 77% jump in the first quarter trading as the virus whipsawed markets, beating the average 30% gain at U.S. peers. Barclays, the third largest UK bank by market value, is due to report second quarter results later this month. And that will give them even more cover to get rid of Staley, in my opinion. If things are going well financially and they can really shove this through in the boardroom and Bramson can really make it happen, then Staley his goose is cooked even worse than I thought. Because it's all about the Benjamins, right? If they're making dough and they can convince people that Staley really has nothing to do with it, well, he's definitely gone, because at the end of the day, the only thing that these people care about is money, right? And it's not because, even with Bramson, it's not, in my opinion, it's not just because Epstein was such a scumbag. It's because Bramson really wants Staley out. So he will use whatever sort of information possible to make that happen. But at the end of the day, what he truly understands, is that Epstein and the stink of Epstein around Jes Staley and Barclays is not going to be good for his pocketbook. And there is nothing that motivates people like him more than losing money. Barclays has one of the longest serving CEOs in British banking after a swath of senior changes in the past year. HSBC Holdings plc tapped company veteran Noel Quinn as CEO in March, while Royal Bank of Scotland Group plc promoted Alison Rose to the top job last September. Lloyd's Banking Group plc said on Monday that CEO Antonio Horta Osorio will step down next year after a decade in charge. Global banking executives with a blend of mainstream banking and bulge bracket investment banking leadership experience will be sounded out, said John Cronin, analyst at Goodbody. UniCredit SPA CEO Jean-Pierre Mustier and Standard Chartered PLC's boss Bill Winters could be among the candidates, he added. The bank shares have fallen more than a third this year, partly due to the economic onslaught of the coronavirus pandemic. And again, it is all about money. If they're losing money and they can slap the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, disgusting criminal activity on Jes Staley, that is exactly what they'll do to get him out the door. And remember, Sherborne is a huge stakeholder within Barclays. So Bramson, he has a very strong voice. And from what I've heard, he has really been able to win some board members over to his side. So when you start seeing these reports start trickling out again, you know that the writing is on the wall, folks. And that Jes Staley's time within the financial sector, as a head honcho of a boss, as a big shot, running the halls, looking down his nose at everybody else, his time is coming to an end. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Inside of the description box, you will find a link to the article, and you will also find a link to the GoFundMe account if you would like to help the podcast. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on tonight with the Daily Drop.